report server configuration. So the first thing you're going to see when you open up your report server configuration manager is to find your server, like so. Find, I only have one report server, so connect. I've already configured my report server, so I will talk you through most of the instructions. I use for a report server's account, I use the default virtual built-in account. You could create your own domain user account. Ideally, if you should use a Windows server, whether it's a hybrid deployment or something. But basically, this should have the correct the virtual account has the correct permissions and authority to run the service. So if you are assigning a domain account, you should assign it the correct services and authority to run the service. Otherwise, you're going to run into weird or complicated errors. Next, the web service URL. This is the web service URL. It asks for a report server web service virtual directory. I use the default I use the default directory, which is the report server. Then it asks for report server web service site identification. How else are you going to go to a website without a URL and a port? These days we use a lot of HTTPS, which is secure or somewhat secure. I have not configured this because it's my deployment server and I'm the only one that has access to it. On a production environment, you would generally configure it with either one of these two. Or three. And this would be your web service URL. Database I have already configured. Let me just talk you through it. When configuring your report server for the first time, you need to create a database in an existing instance of SQL Server. So click next to create a new report server. Server name, I use my SQL Server account. Get my password. Okay, test connection successful. Click next. It tells you enter the database name and select the language for running SQL queries. Create a report server and create a temp database called report server temp. Language English. Report server mode native. SQL authentications to connect to. Specify the credentials of an existing account that the report server will use to connect to the report server database. Permission to access the report server will be automatically granted to the account you specify. So you could create a Windows account, which would be an AD account, a SQL Server account, or service credentials. Now I use the default service credentials, which would use the NT service SQL Server reporting service. Summary just gives a summary of everything that's going to be happening. I'm not going to proceed past progress and finish because I have already configured my report server database. web portal URL. So if you go to this, configure the URL to access web portal. Click Advanced to define multiple URLs or specify additional parameters on the URL. So go to this URL. Here is my SQL Server reporting service for doing my SQL Server 2022 reporting service. Configured and up and running. I just haven't created any reports yet. Email settings. Use this email setting. You basically have to create a new email address to bulk email your reports. I was going to say spam, but it's not actually spam. An execution account is an account that is basically used for read-only permissions. Read-only operations, when you say you need to give somebody access to read a report for the next week, this is what you should use. Encryption keys are important. Backup your encryption key. You click backup. File location, where are you going to store your encryption keys? I have already installed my encryption key. Password, and confirm your password, and click OK. At the bottom it will say encryption key created. Restoring encryption keys. Where have you stored your encryption keys? I have installed my encryption keys here. Click open. You add your password that you use to back up your encryption keys on. Subscription settings. Configure an account to be used by subscriptions to access file shares. Use an account with a minimum permissions as possible. An account that is different from the account that is used for the report server account service. So basically, you're going to use a separate account that uses role-based access control, and this account is going to be one with the least privileges, just so people can access the file, read it or copy it, and that's it, nothing else. Scale out deployment. If you have more than one report server, use this page to view information about a scale out deployment report servers that are joined to scale out can store encrypted data in a common report server. Servers that are waiting to join the scale out deployment must be added by a report server instance that is already part of the deployment. That is how you configure report server manager.